So we're gonna get started on Firebase today. Yay! Finally, um, this will be we've got a lot of ground to cover, so this will be spread over a few days because of just different things that we need to go over and discuss and such. So I have some things I want you to do here as assignments. So I'm gonna try and keep this today to under 2 hours because you'll need at least 2 hours to get the stuff done today that I need you to do. So we'll try to keep it short. Okay. So first things first. Let's talk about a little bit about where Firebase fits in. So Firebase is, in some sense, it's a database. It's a NoSQL database, similar in a lot of ways to MongoDB. It's actually a little bit more than that. It is, there are several parts actually to Firebase. One of those is something called Firestore, which is the actual database part. But there's actually several other components that Firebase ships with, and you can use as it suits your application. So another one of those is authentication. So it provides systems for users creating accounts and logging in and resetting passwords. That all of that stuff's actually built in. Security rules as well that feeds into your users that you have logged in, so you can control what documents, what data that your users can read and write.
Hey, Mr. Smith.
Yep.
Are you sharing Google Drive or like slides or something?
You should be seeing the schedule.
Oh, okay. I was just making sure.
Yeah, you should be seeing the schedule. Those are kind of things that are built in and available there. There's also, in addition, another thing that they provide is, for instance, storage. So you can upload files and store them there as well. So there's a bunch of different services, and we'll talk about some of those over the next few days. We won't go over into all of them because there's way more than what we can cover. But it's worth noting that there's a few more things to it there. In a lot of ways, there's a new term that's kind of been up and coming, which is this idea of serverless computing or serverless applications. That is a little bit of a misnomer because it really just means that it's not that you don't have a server, it's that you're not really managing that server yourself, and that's really where Firebase fits in. Is it's really a way to write serverless, quote unquote, applications. Basically, they provide your backend for you, your server and your database all kind of lumped into one, and then your application can connect to it. So it works actually. They've got integrations with all sorts of technologies. So as you read through the documentation, their official documentation, you'll see there's a bunch of code samples of how to do it in this technology, how to do it in that technology. So for instance, you can use Firebase to build web applications. You can actually use it as your backend, as opposed to something like MongoDB. That is an option. You can use it to build Android apps. You can use iOS apps. It's definitely I would say a much better fit to mobile applications than it is to server applications. And part of that is if you're writing a say web application, you're already kind of in those technologies. It makes more sense oftentimes in web apps for you to just build your own backend rather than taking one off the shelf. But you can use it in that space. So there are tutorials out there to use Firebase with JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript. You can use it with Node. You can use it with Express. You can use it with React. You can use it with Angular. So there's a lot of different, pretty much anything you want to use as your front end, you can use that with Firebase as your back end. Okay, so that's where this kind of fits in. So today I want to go over a little bit of how to get your account set up on Firebase. That's what we're going to focus on, and that's what I'll walk you through, is getting your account and your database and those kind of things started. and as well as getting your project started so it can talk to and connect to Firebase. And then tomorrow we'll talk more about the specifics of how do you write Android applications with Firebase. But today we'll just focus on the back end portions of it. Okay. So I'm going to hop over to Perusal. This is the kind of trailer marketing piece for Firebase, or Cloud Firestore specifically, which will give you kind of an overview of what it is and where it fits in. So we're going to play this real quick, and then we'll get back into starting and creating your Firebase project. Cool.
Yep.
If you can't hear the audio, let me know. We'll fix it and get back rolling. Cool. So I will say, Firebase is actually really, really easy to use, really easy to learn, and it does this job really, really well. One of the big things that sets Firebase apart, or in Firestore apart, he kind of mentioned one of those is the offline capabilities. So like if your user's going through a tunnel, they're getting on an airplane, things like that, where they have kind of intermittent connections, it works really, really well for those things. Usually you have to write a lot of code to support intermittent connections. And it does that really well out of the box. There's very little code and very little you have to worry about in terms of that. Like that pretty much just works, which is amazing compared to a lot of other options out there on the market, because it's usually something that we have to build and roll in ourselves. Now, does it support fully offline apps? No, it's not something you're going to use if your app is fully offline. This is something where you're online most of the time, but the connection might be spotty every once in a while. So that's one of the things that it does really well, is handling intermittent connections. The other thing that it's really strong in is doing what we call real-time updates. So let's say I update a post, or I put a comment, I make changes on my app. Very quickly, almost immediately, you will see those changes also in your app. So it's very good about transmitting those real-time updates from, say, one device to another. Or doing things where you want to have your web app connect to your Android app, and when you make changes on either, you see it reflected basically immediately on the other device. So it's really, really good for anything there where you need real-time updates. You want things to be shown on other devices as soon as they're done. So that's good for things like social apps. Anything you have you need to be social interaction. Actually, one of the easiest projects to make with Firebase is a chat. Instant messaging is actually one of the easiest things to do with Firebase. Okay.
Do people use Cloud Firestore and Firebase interchangeably? Is that...
So Firebase is basically the company, and Cloud Firestore is one of their products, is the way to think about it.
So are we using Cloud Firestore from Firebase?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Which Firebase is also a subdivision of Google. So indirectly, basically this is also a Google product.
Okay. Is this all we're using from Firebase? Is this Cloud Firestore?
That is not the only thing. So the two things that the two big things I'm going to go over is the authentication piece and the Firestore piece. We won't do too much, I will say, with the auth because there's a lot of stuff you get for free, and basically all the stuff you get for free is all we need. Okay. We won't be going in deep on the authentication piece, but we will be using it. So Firestore is where we're going to spend most of our time.
Okay.
Cool.
Yep.
I'm not. There's another product that they have, which is storage. Is another part of one of their services, and I know that some final projects are looking at having images that you're uploading, and so. I think I talked to you, one way to do that was to do through AWS and S3. At the time, I wasn't really aware that actually they have storage options. So That is something if you need to be able to upload images and store them, the storage is Firebase storage is definitely something to look at. I'm not planning to do a lecture on that, but I will do one if enough people need it. Okay.
That's normally paid, isn't it?
So Firebase's stuff, all of it is quote unquote paid, but it's all at such a cheap price that we're talking pennies as far as what kind of usage we're going to be doing. So I don't believe that you need a credit card to sign up for this. I could be mistaken, but it didn't ask me for any credit card or billing information when I signed up for Firebase. Cool.
Okay. Who owns Firebase? I didn't check that.
It's Google. It's Google.
Oh, okay.
It's Google. So that's kind of the overview of what it is and where we're going. So I want to get started on getting your projects up and running with Firebase. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to firebase.google.com, and there you kind of see the names, right? So Firebase is this kind of group. It used to be I think at some point it may have been a separate corporation, or it's either way, it's under the Google umbrella now. So you want to open up that in your browser, and you definitely want to follow along at this point because I'm going to kind of walk you through doing the basic setup stuff. So when you open that up in your browser, firebase.google.com, you'll see this button here to get started. So that's what you want to click on, is go ahead and click on Get Started. If you haven't signed up yet for Firebase, which you probably haven't, you should get some screens. We'll ask you kind of your info and which Google account you want to connect it to. Once you make it through there, you should see something like this, which is your list of projects. I already have 2 projects here. You won't have any projects yet.
It looks like it just signed me in automatically. I didn't fill out anything, so I don't know if I missed something that I'm going to need.
No, if you got straight here, then you're good.
Create a project. Did you click on that?
Not yet. So.
Okay, that's what I got when I'm logged in too automatically.
So put a post on Discord, just thumbs it up if you're there, just to make sure that we troubleshoot any issues at this point.
Well, I don't see the add project or any of that. It just says create a project and view docs.
Yeah, same for me. It says create a project.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, does the email matter, because it signed me into it signed me into one of my other Google accounts? Yeah,
it does matter. You want to make sure you use the one that you want to use for this project. So, whatever Google account you want to use for it, make sure you're signed into that one. Whether it be a personal account, a professional account, whatever it is. Does that answer your question, Corey?
Yeah, I'm just going to try to sign in with a different account.
Okay. So for everybody, does everybody seeing create project? That's your text you're seeing then? Okay, Corey, you get that sorted out?
Yeah, I think I'm almost done. All right, I think I'm good.
Cool. Okay. So next, I'm going to click on Add Product. You're going to click Project. You're going to click on Create Project. Should do the same thing. So when you click on Create Project, the first question it should ask you is, what do you want to call your project? Okay. So you're building this out for your final project, and so what you're gonna name the project is going to be the name that you've chosen on input on your project proposal, right? So that's the name that you're gonna put there. So I'm gonna put example project for my case.
Should there be the naming convention? Should there be something like app or something like that, or?
I would not add the word app, because we'll add that. We'll do that later. So the app is kind of lives underneath the project. So for instance, if you're let's see, somebody toss out what their final project name is.
Mine's the garden tracker.
Okay, so that would be all I would put there. It's just garden tracker. Does that help?
Do you mean like not the?
Just garden tracker. Just garden tracker. Yep. So one of the things you'll see here's the unique identifier. Every project you create has to have a unique identifier. And by default, what it does is it takes your name, adds in dashes, and then adds some random letters at the end. That's good. That's what you want to keep. So whatever it comes up here is the default unique identifier. That's fine. Just keep that. So here I'm calling mine example project. You'll call it whatever your final project is. And then the next screen you'll get is asking you about analytics. And analytics is a great thing. I would go ahead and enable it on these projects. I'm not gonna go over how to use analytics, because that's beyond the scope of what we can really do. But analytics are really, really important. I cannot stress that enough. And basically what they let you do is they basically give you logs of what your users are doing, how much time they're spending on different screens, with all you having to do is put in a little bit of extra code to say, well, this happened, like they logged in, they failed to log in, this error occurred. So it gives you a lot of ways to kind of see what's happening with your users, more than just the feedback that you're giving. So this can be really good for diagnosing systematic problems where your users are like, their app's constantly crashing, trying to figure out, if you see a lot of users uninstalling your apps or giving you bad reviews, this can be one way it can be helpful. Or just figuring out, maybe there's some places where users are having trouble or getting confused, and that can give you a lot of insights. But it's not really something we're going to cover. So you can either have this, you can disable it or enable it. I don't care which way you go. But if you plan to do it, if you plan to go further with this project beyond the end of the semester, I would definitely recommend enabling it. If you do have it enabled, you're going to get this next question, which is, what account do you want to connect the Google Analytics to? Google Analytics is kind of a separate product that it connects to. So you may have to create an account there if you don't already have one. I think it will create one for you. So you can either do create new account. Yep.
Mine says analytics location.
Uh-huh.
I don't see the create Google Analytics account.
Oh, okay. So here, I think that's because I've done this before. So here it's saying automatically link to, you can say create a new project, link it to, because I already have an existing one. So you should be able to just enter a name.
I'll send a screenshot of what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, you can just hit the default stuff there. So if you check the 2 box, it will let you pass through there.
And it's my next thing is create account. Does that mean I'm skipping what you're at right now?
No, that's the same thing. That's the same thing. It should say, it says create project, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you just check the two boxes, you create project, it'll put you to the same place here as well. It just looks different the second time you go through it versus the first.
Okay.
Okay. So once your project is created, you should get to a screen like this. Anybody having troubles getting here? We're still working on it. So what we're seeing here is called the Firebase Console. And this is where we're going to really administer all of our Firebase things, technologies that we're using. So there's documentation links here that you can get to as well. So if you want to explore authentication, you want to explore Cloud Firestore, different things they've got, links to learn more about those different projects. You'll also see that there's some links here to connect it to whatever app you're building. So like if you're building an iOS app, you would go through here. We're building an Android app, so we're going to end up going through here. Or if you're building a web app, and it'll give you some specific guidance about how to work there. You'll also notice there's a Unity icon here. Say if you wanted to integrate Firebase with a Unity game, you can do that as well. So there's a bunch of different. This is kind of the pathway that we'll go through. We'll start this today, and we'll talk more about it tomorrow. Of like how do you connect to it in the Android app. But before we get into connecting it to the app, I want to talk a little bit about the back end and things that we need to set up on the console to support what we want to do in our apps. Okay, so on the left, you'll see there's a bunch of things. So there's the project overview, and you can go there to get, change project settings. So for instance, if you decide to change the name of your project, you can go do that. If you need to change who it belongs to, here it's under rankenit.com. You can change all those different things. But you'll notice the project ID is not editable. That's one thing that you have to. Once it's set, it's set. It's not changeable. But you can change the name of your project later. This isn't a big deal either way because it's not something your users. None of this is information that your users will see. They will just see whatever you put into your application. So I'm going to go back to the project overview where we were. On the left, you'll see under build, there's a bunch of different options. So there's authentication, there's Firestore, there's real-time database storage, hosting, functions, and machine learning. All of those are products that make up the Firebase kind of suite of tools. So, there's a lot to learn about Firebase. There's a lot you can do with it in learning all those different technologies. As I kind of mentioned, there's a lot to Firebase. We won't be covering all of these. Okay, so the main one I will be focusing on is Firestore, but we'll also be using authentication. And again, if people need, depending on your project needs, and if there's enough people that need it, I will do a lecture on storage. That one will obviously, if I do a lecture on that won't be mandatory because I know that not every project that people are building really needs that storage API, but some of them may benefit from it. Okay.
Storage of what? Big files?
Of files in general. So the most, like pictures. So if your app needs to be able to upload pictures and store them, then you might look at the storage API. Or if you need to upload video, upload audio, all those kind of things, if you're going to host it, you can host it through that storage API. So like Paul, I know you're doing the menu stuff.
Yeah.
And I talked about doing this through AWS. This is another way that you can do it instead of AWS. And so we could talk a little bit through the specifics, as well as I think there's another person or two, another few that wanted to do image uploads.
Yeah, it seems to be the most efficient, and learn AWS on the fly.
Yeah.
In addition to all this too.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that when I was talking to you guys last, that this storage system existed in Firebase now. So we'll talk through it. But my reading on it is it seems pretty easy to use. So cool. So let's get into the authentication piece first. Firebase provides some easy ways to get authentication, and it actually includes things like what we call federated logins, or OAuth. It's got support for those. So you can do things like log in with your Google account, or log in with Facebook, Twitter, GitHub. It includes a lot of different ways that you can use your different social media accounts to log in. And actually, most of that functionality is just built for you. And you don't have to do a lot other than register your app with the service where you want to do that. So for instance, if you want to have a Facebook login, well, you have to create a Facebook app through the Facebook website. If you want to create a Twitter, if you want to be able to log in through Twitter, well, you have to make a Twitter app using the Twitter website. Similar with GitHub, if you want to log in with your GitHub account, then you'll need to use that. So there's a bunch of different login schemes. The simplest one really is just the username and password. The user can just create an account with a username and password, and that's one of the ones that I'm going to ask everybody to support. Everybody should have a username and login functionality, because that's the main one I'm going to test your app through. I would also like to see you add another one or two additional login methods, and we'll kind of talk about what makes the most sense for the app you're building. So it might be maybe GitHub is the best fit, or it might be Twitter is the best fit, it might be Facebook is the best fit. Really depends on what you're building. So we kind of need to talk through that individually to see what's the best sign-in mechanism for your particular app that you're building. Okay. I'm going to play this video here real quickly, because I think it does give a good summary of what authentication is, where it fits in. We know about some of this already, because we talked about authentication and authorization when we did web applications last semester, and you'll kind of remember this when we talk about authentication, we're really usually talking about logins and managing users, and proving their identity is kind of how we define authentication. So we'll watch this real quick, and then we'll get going on kind of setting up our authentication on the back end.
When he says callbacks, is it like what we did with retrofit?
Yeah, that's what he means. Same thing. So like with retrofit, you get a success callback or a failure callback, saying if your callback, if the thing succeeded, and what's the response you got, or failure in the area that you got. So all of the stuff with authentication and Firestore actually is the same way. You're gonna, whatever you want to do, you're gonna set that up with callbacks. So you have like a success callback and a failure callback. Cool.
Okay, so we already have experience with how it's set up a little bit.
Yeah, because it's in terms of callbacks, it's very, very similar to retrofit. So let's look at the authentication section here. So you want to open that up. There is a get started button here, which is what we're going to click on, and that will walk us through. That will take us here. So there's this long list of all the different authentication, what they call sign-in providers that you can enable, and so what we'll want to do is enable the ones that we need. All of the different mechanisms that we plan to use. That won't be all of these. What I would say is it's definitely for everybody. We're going to enable email and password, but then depending on what you're building, you're going to add another one or two of those. So let's start with just the email and the password. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. I'm going to flip this over to enable. I won't enable the passwordless sign in because we do want them to have and select a password. So I'm just going to hit enable on that first switch, hit save. Okay, so that has enabled the email and the password setup. So the next question is what things make sense for us to provide additional sign-in mechanisms? So, let's, kind of going through, what people are building. Let's start with, one person at a time. Corey, if you're thinking about what you're building, I think that's the garden, garden project. What for you would probably be the most, what would make the most sense for you to use as your sign-in?
I would say either Google or Facebook, I think.
Okay. So that's a good way to think about that. Why would you choose those two? Why would those be a good fit for what you're building?
Google, because I feel like it's easier to search, like you're just directly related to your searches and stuff. And then Facebook, I don't know if you want to post related to it or if you're coming from Facebook or something, I don't know.
I would say that it's a good, those two are a good fit because your users probably already have accounts there, if that makes sense. So that's why I would pick those two. I would say for you personally, I would say let's enable the Google login, not the Facebook login at this point, because there has been kind of a lag in getting the Facebook stuff set up. So it's not hard to do. It's just that getting approval for the Facebook takes a little bit of doing, takes a lot more work than getting a Google.
Okay.
So I would say go with Google. Don't go with Facebook for your specific case.
When I'm doing Google, I have to fill in a project support email or something.
Yes. So that would be where somebody would contact you for bugs. We'll get
to you. Okay. So
we'll come back. So I just want to go through everybody one by one. So Daniel.
Yeah.
So remind me what you're building. What's your project name?
I'm building a stock checker.
Stock checker, right? So for you, what would be the top two that you would pick for logins?
I'm sorry, for what?
For logins, for sign-ins.
Probably Google.
Okay, Google definitely. That makes sense.
Maybe, I don't know, social medias would make sense.
Social medias kind of make sense. Social medias make a lot of sense. Because what you're doing is technology related, though, GitHub might actually be a good fit too.
Okay, yeah.
Just to think as a secondary. And I think that's going to be the case but I think that's going to be the case for most people where, the social media ones are maybe the better fits. So we'll definitely walk through here with the Google one, but let's go through everybody one by one. So Jonathan? Remind me what your project name is. Oh, right. Yeah. So what I would say for your regard, because you're dealing with gamers, the ideal one would probably be a Steam login. That's not one that's on this list. So that's, I don't know that, and I don't know that if there's an OAuth API for Steam anyway. So the next best fit would be to say, Google would be a good fit. Actually, Microsoft might be another one you might pick as your second, because, hey, a lot of your gamers are on Windows machines. They may well have a Microsoft account for other reasons. So that's where that's the two that I would enable for you is Google and Microsoft. Mo? Mo, you there? Paul?
Yeah, probably Google and Microsoft. You agree?
I'd say that Google and Facebook would be a better fit. Again, because you're doing something more social like if I'm thinking about a restaurant probably already has a Facebook page. Most do, right?
Yeah.
So they might have a Facebook login, then they might have a Facebook login specifically that they're using to already manage their Facebook page. So that would definitely be something I would consider there. But given what I had already said about Facebook being kind of the slow one to approve, yeah, you could go that route too. You could go the Google and Microsoft route as well. So those are the, Google and one other one is basically what I would pick for you then. Sheridan, I know your project's kind of in limbo there. That might be good. Facebook and Twitter, as I said, Facebook is a little bit hard to get through to set up. So you could try pursuing that. But I think that it's just because their turnaround time to enable that and do all the things that you need to do to get Facebook a Facebook app set up, you might just put that on hold and say maybe Twitter and another one for now. Yeah, that'd be good. Google and Twitter, and because you can come back here later and enable the Facebook thing if you want to do that. It takes there's a bunch of stuff you have to do to get anything working with the Facebook APIs, unfortunately, which is more time than we really have before the end of the semester. Troy, you're doing the tank chat stuff, I remember. What company, I forget what company owns that game. Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I mean, Google might be a good fit, especially if they're using, I don't know if there's a mobile version of World of Tanks, but if they're reusing it, say, on if there's a version of that for the Play Store, well, then obviously, then Google would be a good one to pick in there. Because if they have a mobile app, then there's definitely users that are already signing in through Google. Yeah, so that's what I would do then, is definitely Google, and yeah, Twitter would be the one to add there. Vincent? Yep, that sounds fine. That sounds good, Vincent. So what about you, Zach?
I'm doing the card store, and I was basically going to use Google and Facebook as well. Basically, okay. Google for Vincent's explanation of it, but Facebook doesn't seem to want to work like you said, so I may try to use just a phone authentication. If it's like you sign in through your phone, if you get a text, maybe, is that what it is, or?
That's fine. So the phone authentication, yeah, that's if I remember right, yeah, it's like you get a text to set it up.
Okay.
Kind of thing. if that's like you use your phone number and yeah, you get a text to prove that it's you.
I
So
just
that-
kind of figured
that would work.
that or Google would work because it seems like everybody, even 3-year-olds, can do that now. So it seems like the easiest to use.
Another weird one though to suggest for you, which I know there's not a lot of people using Yahoo anymore, but you're talking about dealing with collectors and such with the Pokemon card space.
So maybe an older demographic.
Older demographic, they might actually have a Yahoo account. So that would actually be a maybe a good option. Again, pick which ones you think. But if I was going to build that for your user base, I might actually say, well, Yahoo might be a good one to enable.
You think that would be good for my second one as well, since Facebook is a no-go?
Yeah, you could take that as well. Really, all I'm asking for the final project is that you take the email and password plus any two of the other things here, right? And so just thinking about what makes the most sense for your app, and yeah, for most people that's going to be just your socials, but sometimes that's not the always, it sometimes changes what socials make more sense and those kind of things. So because everybody, it sounds like, is mostly doing Google, I'm going to walk through that one. And I think once we walk through that one, you'll see some of the stuff that about how to do this for a lot of the others that you'll need to know. So setting up Google, because this is a Google product, obviously is the easiest one to do there of all the socials, but the other socials are not that much harder, minus Facebook and everything goes into there. So they do have a mention here about you need to have a SHA-1 fingerprint registered in your project settings in order to use this. I will kind of walk through a little bit of that. I took some notes and I actually have those saved in the sample project that I'm going to give you in terms of figuring out what that SHA-1 fingerprint is. That requires, in order to get that SHA-1, you do have to do some command line PowerShell commands in order to get that. So there's a little bit involved there, but actually most of the third-party sign-ins do require you to have this SHA-1. So it's something that's worth knowing and learning how to do, even if you're not necessarily using a Google login. In terms of these two drop downs, yeah, no, if I remember right, I didn't have to put anything in there. So you're just going to hit enable. It's going to give you this project name is going to be generated. We were probably going to want to go ahead and fill that in. So for instance, it does say this is going to be publicly facing. So you would probably name this based on what the name of your app is and what you would expect it to see. So mine is named, I've called this example project. So I'm just going to put example project here as my quote unquote public facing.
Use what kind of case?
Lowercase. You see lowercase separated by dashes.
Okay.
So, yeah. So like if you have your garden, your app is Garden Manager, then it would look like that. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Support email, what you're going to do is you're going to put there is basically that's the email that they're going to contact if they have problems. And so for this, because we're just doing this for class, it's not a big deal in terms of support requests, but that would be something to pay more attention to if you're building a professional app. As I understand, you can change it later, so it's not a big deal if you want to change it at some point down the road. Usually assign somebody to that kind of support email process, so you would do that there. But I think you should be able to just pick your email. That should be the same email that you created the account with, the project with, should be in that dropdown. Cool. So that's all I'm going to do, is I'm going to do example project and type in my email. Does that answer your question earlier, Corey, that you had?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So that's all you had to do. to set up here. Okay. So let's talk about the SHA-1 real quick before I leave here. So there was a link in here about how to do it. So you want to go to your SHA-1 fingerprint. And it will actually give you some instructions about what the commands that you need to do. You'll see that there's instructions for running on Mac or Linux. You'll see there's a command for doing it on Windows. The command that they have here, it's worth noting, they don't actually specify, but this command does work in the Windows, like the command prompt. It actually doesn't work as is in the in PowerShell. So if you're going to use it in PowerShell, which I would recommend, you do have to use a slightly different syntax. You do have to change a few things. Another thing that's in here is they've tried to spread it over multiple lines using this slash. When I copy pasted it into PowerShell, that didn't work. It didn't correctly kind of treat that as one line. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my example project, and I'll show you the command that I actually ended up having to run to get the correct hash. Another kind of built-in thing that they don't mention here, they say, you know, open a terminal and run the key tool utility provided with Java. If you haven't made Java, the Java JDK, part of your path, this won't work either because it won't find the key tool. So, you know, ways around that is you can either update your path to include the Java JDK, or you can change where you run it or specify that path. So in my perspective, you know, I already have updated my path, so I was able to run this with just using the key tool command. But I think that most of you haven't updated your path to have Java on it, correct?
I'm not sure if I understand what you mean by that. Are we going to work through a sample project, or should we pull up our project here and try to get this going?
So we will be starting your project today, starting your final project. If you haven't started it yet, we'll be starting your final project. It'll be great.
The repo, you mean? Just copy it over from the last version that we did.
Yeah, from the last. So if you know, you're going to copy your project from the old repo, whatever you know, it's going to be either Unit 4, Unit 3. The last time you touched it, you're going to copy that over into the new final project repo. But before we do all this, let's get this SHA-1 hash sorted out, so you know how to get that and how to put it into your project. I'm only opening Android Studio at this point because I had a README that I had put together, and I just want to open that up with the correct command. Okay, there we go.
Are you recording this?
Yes, I am recording this.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's I'm going to link this in Discord. Copy this in Discord. So there's the command that I had to run to get the fingerprint. But as I mentioned, if you open up PowerShell, what you're probably and try to run that, you're probably going to get an error saying that it can't find the key tool. So if I open up PowerShell and just find that from here, start menu, and type in key tool. Well, for me, this is the output, right? Because it's on my path. But you're probably going to get the output that it can't find it. Okay, so
We can't see your PowerShell.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Let me change what's streaming. Sorry. Yeah.
So it's just supposed to say that it's not recognized as the name of a CMD let, or whatever that is, a function, a script
command
file,
let.
non-operable program.
Yeah.
Yeah, command let.
It's probably going to say that you can't find it. So like if I mistyped it, you're probably seeing something like this. Can't find the term key tool. Okay. So that's just saying that it can't find the program that you told it to run. That can be fixed, and again, one of the ways to do that is to update your path. But that's a little bit more than what we need to do to just run this one command. So what I'm going to do instead is just show you how to run it, figure out what the path to your JDK is, so you can run this without needing to update your path. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your C drive, because that's more than likely where you've installed the JDK. It's probably going to be under Program Files, not Program Files x86. That does depend on if you've installed the 64-bit versus the 32-bit JDK. 64-bit JDK is going to be here, 32-bit JDK is going to be there. I've installed the 64-bit JDK, so it's going to be just under Program Files. And I think that's what I told everybody to do as well. So under Program Files, you'll find a folder named Java, and then inside of there you'll see your JDK installations. So is everybody seeing JDK 15.0.1?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So diving into 15.0.1, I think that's the one that everybody installed at the beginning of the semester. You're then going to find a folder named bin. Bin is short for binary. That's where all the executables that are part of the JDK are. So the way I have my computer set up, I actually have this folder, this bin folder, is actually part of my path. So anytime I try to run commands on the command line, it actually does search in that path, which is how it's able to find the key tool. But we can specify and we can tell PowerShell to look in that folder specifically, so we don't necessarily have to make that update. So what I'm going to do here instead is at the beginning I'm going to put in that path. So I'm going to say /bin/keytool, right? So if you type that in and hit enter, that gave me a different output. Why did that give me a different output?
You put quotes in there, right? Yeah, that's important.
I did put quotes in there. Do I need to put single quotes? Because that's what it's wanting. No, because it's just echoing out what I typed in. So let's try keytool.exe. Okay. Well, let's test it. So that's, in theory, should be what works. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I need to put the word exec in front. No. Let me check real quick. PowerShell run command with path. Oh, okay. They put an ampersand in front of it, so that may be what I need to do. And yes, so that's what you want. So if your JDK is installed in the same place where mine is, then instead of typing keytool at the beginning of that command, it's going to look like that.
So it's an ampersand and a space, it looks like.
Ampersand, space, and then you put the whole path to the keytool.exe in there. And then you can see the command, the arguments above there. So -list, -v, alias, Android debug key, key store, etc. So all of that needs to be in there on the same line. Good news is you only need to do this once. So when you get that all in there, it's going to ask you for a password. And if we look at the documentation here, it will say that the default password for your debug key store is Android. So that's what you're going to type in there as the password. The password is Android.
Where does it say password?
What do you mean? It's in the documentation here, this page.
Yeah, but did you click, did you enter the key tool word to get the password to pop up?
So I entered that command. You see the whole command there? Let me zoom in. See
Oh, is that the
command
one
I
from the
entered?
website?
Yeah. So key tool, list, v, alias, etc., etc. You're going to type all that in. It's going to ask you for the password, and we're going to type in Android as the password. And so if that works correctly, you should see an error. You should see it spit out like this.
I copied and pasted it. I guess you have to type it out, right?
Have to type out. You have to type out the password. Yes.
No, I meant the what? How did you get the prompt without typing out all that stuff on the? Okay, that's yours. I see it. Right there on the second line with the yellow.
Yep.
How did you get that in there?
I actually I copied that from. I just copied and pasted that in there.
Where I don't know if I'm doing the same thing, but I got something unexpected. It put some quotes in there. I mean, I can just take them out, I guess, but.
Okay. You should have quotes around the path to key tool because program files has a space in it, so quotes are required.
When I did what you have right there,
yeah,
I got the term key tool is not recognized as the name of CMDlet function.
Do you remember what I said? So instead of key tool, you're going to have to put the whole path.
Oh.
So let me actually just do that here. So it's going to look like paste that in first and then paste all the arguments.
So I got key store files does not exist.
For your Android debug key?
Yeah.
Do you have it exactly as that, the casing all lowercase?
Yeah, I just copy pasted it, so it's the same.
Okay, so Android debug key, no spaces. I mean, that's it. If you've got it exactly right, it shouldn't be giving you that error.
Mine gave me a list entries in key store.
List entries in key store?
Yeah. I think I figured out how you're doing yours though.
Okay. This looks like it's wrapping onto 2 lines. It's really all one long line.
Does the user profile matter? Because mine's just in the parentheses or the percentages.
If you do in the percentages, it won't work. The percentages, that only works as long as you're using the command prompt, the Windows command prompt. That does not work in PowerShell. PowerShell is a different syntax.
So we just need to change it to what you have right there.
Correct. Yeah. Because the percentages in the command prompt, that's how you say that this is an environment variable. But again, PowerShell uses a different syntax for environment variables. So that's what you have to do if you're using PowerShell.
Yeah, I'm still getting an error. I think I have what you do. I just swapped out dollars and env user profile. I can paste what I'm.
Yeah, take a screenshot of what you're seeing, so I can see what you're looking at.
Yeah. All right.
And same thing for Daniel. If you still haven't figured it out, take a screenshot of it.
I figured it out.
Okay. What did it end up being?
Oh, I was copy pasting from the website, not the command you gave us.
Yeah. I made some
Oh,
choices. Part of why we're going over this because there's a lot of stuff missing there in the short tutorial that they give you.
How can I tune mine up? Am I missing a space? Is there an extra space or
No,
quote?
the problem is it can't find key tool. So rather than putting key tool at the beginning, you need to put that entire string.
Paul, use the one that he posted in Discord, not the one from the website.
Yeah.
I did that and it fixed my problem.
Yeah.
The one right above what I just posted there.
Yeah.
That'll work for everybody.
That one will work for everybody. As long as your JDK is in the same place.
All right, got it. Lowercase Android.
And that'll work.
I got a weird problem. I can't type. I can't type.
Is it asking you for a password right now?
Yep.
Okay. Then you'll just need to hit enter.
Nope, nothing.
Mine said key store was tampered with or password was incorrect.
That's what I'm getting also.
Okay.
When you enter the password, it's not going to show it, guys.
It doesn't show it as you're typing it.
Oh.
It doesn't show it to you as you're typing it.
User experience. That's a 0 out of 10 right there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
It's a common way though for logins, for security reasons when you're doing logins on the command line.
I think it's very difficult on the command line to replace it with asterisks or something. So you just kind of have to live with it.
Unfortunately, yes. Command line makes things hard. And actually, the problem is that, long story short, oftentimes console stuff sticks around for a long time. So even if they were to do just asterisks, then you would still know, hey, it's like 7 digits long. And that would be a problem. Because it'd be easy for an attacker to figure out how long your password is if they showed what the length was. So. All right. Anybody still struggling to get that output? Okay. So there's a lot of stuff that it spits out, and we actually don't care about most of the output, okay? So we're only paying attention to one tiny thing that this outputs, and that is right here in the middle. So everybody see where it says certificate fingerprints? So you've got a SHA1 and a SHA-256. What we want is the SHA-1. So what you're going to do is you're just going to hold left click and drag and select that whole thing. That will actually copy it to your clipboard. Just dragging and select, and then you hit enter. Once you've hit enter, that's now in your clipboard, and we can paste it into the website where we need it to be. So everybody tracking with me there? Drag, select, and then press enter. All right. So once you've got that on your clipboard, we're going to go back to the example project. It's going to lead us to the project settings. You can either follow that link here if you're there, or you can go through the gear and go to project settings. And we need to find the SHA-1. And let me remember, where did I have to put that in? I'll go back to authentication and maybe I can track it from there. So under here, we'll go to project settings. Okay. Where's the SHA-1? Where did I have to put this in? Oh, you're right. You're right. It is. You're right. Yeah. Yeah. It is when we connect to the Android. I think that's right. Yeah. So I think what we have to do is set that up. So under here, you can do it by clicking this button, or you can do it back on the project overview. So we're going to connect it to our Android app. That's what we want. So in here, that's where you're going to paste the SHA-1 that you had into that debug signing certificate. Yeah, so we need to register the Android app. So that's part of what we need to do. So in terms of your package name, you want to make sure that you get this the same as what the project is going to be. So what the package name in the Android app is going to be. So for me, that would be, for instance, that would be edu.ranken.prsmith dot the project name. So like example project. This is going to be, you got to make sure that this is the same thing as what you put into Android Studio. Separate tracking with me there.
That's easy. The way I have it is just my project. Since this isn't public facing, that's okay, right? As long as that.
Yeah. And this is where I would add like this would be your Android app. So this would be like example project,
like restaurant menu, something like that.
Yeah, restaurant menu Android project, something like that, or Android app, right?
Is this where we're setting up the files and stuff, or are we not doing that right
now? Which files are you talking about?
I thought you said we were going to create the app, or is this what you're talking about?
Yeah, we're getting there.
Okay.
So go ahead and enter those 3 pieces of information. So you're going to enter the package name, the app nickname, and the SHA-1 hash. Okay. Has everybody got that? And yeah, we'll create the project here in a second. So
got it.
Once you've got those 3 in there, you're going to hit register app. It's going to spin for a little bit, and it's going to give you this download config file. Okay, so you got this option to download the Google services.json. So this is the file that's basically going to connect our app. It's going to give us all the connection details that we need to connect our app to Firebase. So go ahead and just click download Google Play Services. It's going to download it to your downloads folder. And then from there, we're going to end up moving it into the actual project. Okay. So once you've downloaded it, what you actually want to go do is we're going to go create the project. So I'm going to go ahead and close project, and I'm going to create a new project. So if you've already got the project, you're going to move that over to Android's over to your final project repo at this point. If you haven't started it, I'm going to kind of walk through this as if it was a brand new project. So if you want to follow along that way, that's fine. So I'm going to go through empty project. What was the name of I put this in as edu Ranken PR Smith example project. So that's what I'm going to put here as well. So example project. And I want to make sure that this goes to my final project repo. So let's go in here, final project repo. So under final project repo, once you've cloned it down, you'll see that there are a few folders. You've got your code, you've got your presentation, you've got your proposal. Obviously, this is going to go into the code folder. So I'm going to put that into, I'm going to put this example project into that code folder. Is everybody tracking with me so far?
Yeah.
So if you're creating the project from scratch, that's what you'll do. If you're copying it from somewhere else, like you've already started it, you're going to copy it from one repo to your final project. You're going to do that now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit finish there and give you guys a chance to either get the project created or get the project copied.
We don't need a folder inside the code folder. It's all the code's just going in the code folder.
Either way, I'll take it either way. It can either be the code folder or a subfolder in there. Whichever of those two ways you want to do it.
There's nothing we're doing now that I can just do it in the repo from before, right? And just copy it over because it's this Google JSON, Google Services JSON file. We're just going to dump that inside one of the.
I want you to copy it over now. I don't want you to copy over later. I want you to copy over now.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. I want you to do that right now. Part of that is because that's going to count as your attendance for the day, is having that submission to the final project repo. Plus, I need you to get started on having that repo. So.
Okay.
So this is on our final project repo?
Yep. I sent out an invite link on Monday. And there's the link again.
The code folder.
Yep.
Sorry if I'm looking right at it, but the Gradle idea app, all that I cut out of my project and dump it into the code, right?
Don't cut it, copy it.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Copy it. But the top level folder called my project, I don't need that, obviously.
Yeah, you don't have to have that. That's up to you.
Yeah,
You can either have it be code/my project or just be code. I'll take it either way. I won't be picky on that.
Any file that's in there by default that's auto created, right? Can we delete that?
If I put a README in there, please don't delete it.
Okay, I didn't know if that was auto or what.
Yeah, there's two reasons that I do that. One, in Git, you can't actually have empty folders. Folders always have to have files in them for them to be in Git. So that's one reason that I create READMEs. Also, often worth noting, sometimes those READMEs contain some instructions. So, in this case, I think the README there basically amounts to put your project files here. Check. But I would ask that you keep the README files. Code.
So our final project is going to go in the code folder.
Yeah, so your final project is going to be in that code folder. Yeah, that's all it says. Place your Android project here. But yeah, the main reason I have that there is just so the code folder is automatically created for you rather than you having to create the code folder. Okay. Questions? Any more issues people are running into? Paul, did you get your project copied over?
Yeah, it's done.
Okay, cool. Mo, did you get yours copied over as well?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so let's go ahead and get that Google JSON in there. Now, if we look at the page, you'll kind of see here it gives us some instructions about how to do that. And so one of the things it says is you need to switch to the project view. And part of the reason for that is that if we're looking at it in the Android view, we're not actually going to be able to put the folder where we need to put it. So we have to look at it in a different view so that we can put this JSON file where it needs to go. So you want to switch over to project. Okay, so you're going to switch over to project, and then under here we're going to expand, and we're going to see there's an app folder. Okay, so the app folder is where we need to put this. So if I go to my downloads, okay, so I've got my Google services.json. All I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag this onto the app folder. Okay, say move. It's going to ask me about refactoring it. I'm going to go ahead and hit refactor. And so what you should see now is under app, you have this Google Services JSON file. So that's one of the things that's the thing that you have to do to start getting this set up. And so that basically includes all of the keys and like API key type things that you need to have to be able to connect for authentication and for Firestore. All of that is going to be here. Now, oftentimes, remember that I would say, you usually want to keep your API keys, your secrets, your client IDs. Usually you want to keep those private. Generally, we don't want to upload those to Git. So usually things like this I would put in my ignore file. As it turns out, these are actually the way that Firebase is set up, and because of the security rules that are there, it's really not a big concern if this quote unquote all of these numbers are leaked, because you can easily just regenerate it and you're there. Plus again, because of the security rules, the way things are set up on the back end, you can really limit the amount of damage somebody could do anyway. So it's not a big deal. We don't need to ignore this Google Services file. I actually want you to check it in so that I can be able to test your app using the same keys that you have. Cool.
So don't touch it.
Yep, you just drop it in the right place under the app folder. You won't need to do anything with this file. Just make sure it gets checked into Git. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Because otherwise, I won't be able to use your app to grade it and to test it if I don't have that file.
Something, I don't know if there's a problem that it says there's a dot activity after. I don't remember setting it up that way, or.
What do you mean there's a dot activity
Like
after?
edu ranken .pwinka.myproject.activity.
You probably drug it in the wrong way then. You probably did the wrong thing. So are you under the project view or the Android view?
Project.
Okay. And you're sure it's under the app folder like this?
I'll send a screenshot real quick here.
Yeah. Because it should look exactly like what I have on my screen. It shouldn't look different.
Maybe that's all right.
Yeah, it looks fine.
Oh, the activity makes it look wrong. You don't have that.
I don't see where you're seeing activity.
On line 12.
Oh, you named your package wrong. That's what happened. You named the package wrong. Yeah. So what you'll need to do, Paul, you'll need to go back to the website, and you'll need to go back to the previous step 1, and put the correct package name in.
To match what's there, the activity thing.
No, what's in there when you go through step 1. Let me go back to the Android. It needs to be the same thing that you have on line 3 of your manifest. It needs to be the same thing as what you have on line 3 of your manifest.
Okay, can I that's all I got to do is just copy and paste that in, right?
Yeah, that's what you can't, but you're not going to be able to just change the Google Services file. You have to generate a new Google Services file.
All right. I may need some help afterward.
Yeah.
How far in are we? Should I fix it now, or
you need to fix it now? I will fix it now. So
all right,
you just need
all right.
to exit out of this and do step 1 again. But step 1 with the correct step, with the correct info. So again, same story for anybody else who has a different thing there in the Google server-side JSON. If this doesn't match up, your package name doesn't match up with your manifest, go and fix that now.
Will there be an error if it doesn't match up?
It will be an error. There won't be an error until you actually try to connect to Firebase, though.
Oh, okay. So if it was messed up, we wouldn't see it yet.
Yes, if it was messed up, you wouldn't see it yet. Correct, but you will see it eventually.
I don't want to hold the class up, but I'm gonna probably flounder a little bit trying to fix this. Can I share my screen so I can get back on track real quick?
Okay.
Yeah.
This is one of those things you have to get right. Otherwise, nothing else works.
Yeah, I realize that. Okay, hang on a second here.
Okay. So we've gone through steps 1 and 2 of this setup. We need to go through the next step of this. So remember, we registered the app, we downloaded that config file and added it to our project. And the next thing we need to do is make some updates to our Gradle. So we're going to kind of follow along with what they've got here. There is at least one thing where this documentation is not 100% correct. So I do want to point out how that's different a bit. So first thing here, you'll see this line, class path Google Services. Does everybody have that in front of them?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that line. Okay. We'll see this is under project build Gradle, and this is build script dependencies. Okay. So remember, you have 2 Gradle files, and today we need to make an update to both of them. So this first thing will be to one file, and the other one will be to a different file. So we're going to copy this line. We're going to go into Android Studio, and under the Gradle scripts, now I'm back in the Android view. Previously we were in the project view. I'm going to go back to the Android view. And so the top one, you see it says project : example project. This is the one we want to change. Okay. So under here it says class path, Android build tools. This is where we need to add this additional class path.
Mr. Smith, where is that web page you got? I'm somewhere else. Not sure how to get back to it. With the code there, add Firebase SDK and all that.
I'm not sure how you get back there.
I'm
not sure how you get back there.
All right.
This is a good reason to just follow along and not skip ahead.
I'm not. I'm just where I was from trying to fix the problem from before.
So I mean, I'll paste it into Discord, but I don't know if there's a way to get back there. I know you can find.
Can you post the link? Okay. Never
My
mind.
link in the browser won't work for you.
Yeah, I noticed that. Okay.
My link in the browser won't work for you. You would get a access denied permission if you tried to go to the same link where I am. So this is part of going through those steps. This is step 3. But as far as I know, if you leave here, there's not a way back to it. Some of this information is in their docs, although my reading on the docs is that they were still even a little bit out of sync with this. It's close enough, but it's not exactly identical either. So this is what we need to add to. That's what we need to add to the dependencies here.
I found it. It's there. I got it.
Okay. Any questions here? Everybody got that? Make sure this is in your project file, not your module file. Okay, so we're gonna hit sync now. And so basically what this is going to do, the reason we need to put it into this file is this is going to enable something called a plugin in Gradle. And so we need that in order to do the next thing. So now that we've added that to the module, the project Gradle, we're going to go over to the module Gradle and we're going to make a few changes there. So one of the things they say here is to add this line, this second line. You see how it says apply plugin, com Google, GMS Google services. You'll also notice that it presumes that you have this line in here, apply plugin, com Android application. Is everybody seeing that on my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you look though at your Gradle, you might find that the words apply plugin don't appear anywhere. Okay. And basically what's happened is Gradle in Android Studio has changed since this documentation was written. So this was kind of the old way of writing it, as I understand it, and the new way of writing it looks different. So if you look at lines 1 through 3 of the Gradle, you should see this. Plugins, IDE, com Android application. Does everybody see that? So this is the new way of adding plugins to your Gradle. So that means we need to do a little bit of a translation when we add the plugin. So we're going to follow the same kind of coding conventions there. I'm going to add into the plugins block, I'm going to add another ID line. And in there, I'm going to use the ID that they're telling us to use. So I'm going to add in com.google.gms.google services. So that's the line I'm actually adding. And you might notice that the ID there that I'm using for the plugin is actually the same thing it's the same ID that we just added to the previous file. Any questions on that?
Easy stuff.
Okay. So the next thing we need to do, and we again just kind of knocking off these things piece by piece. We're next going to bring in this BOM. This is short for Bill of Materials. So we're going to add that in. And this is going to be down under the dependencies section. I'm actually going to add this separately from everything else so I kind of remember that this is for Firebase. Technically, the order here in the dependencies doesn't matter, but it's just easier to track this as a separate thing. Okay, so I'm going to add in there this bill of materials dependency. The nice thing about how this works, actually, because remember Firebase is built up of a bunch of smaller things, this will actually make sure that we get the right versions of the other packages. It used to actually be very hard to keep all the different packages when Firebase in sync, and this bill of materials helps with that process. So what this is going to mean is here we're going to say the version 27.0.0. Whenever there's an update to Firebase, you actually just have to update that number. You won't have to update all the sub dependencies. But that also means that when we specify the subdependencies, we're actually going to specify them like this. So like this is the analytics dependency. I'm going to add that underneath. I don't have a version number in there. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
So the specific version for the Firebase Analytics is specified by this bill of materials line up here. So that determines which version of that dependency we install. And so we'll get one that's compatible with 27.0.0. Whatever the latest one that's compatible with that package is the one we'll get. Cool. So we need to add in the specific packages that we need for what we're doing. And so it does specify analytics. It says go look here if you define additional information about what libraries you need. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull up my other example project because I've already gone through the documentation and figured that out. But there's a few different places I had to look to figure that out. So I'm going to copy that over here. I will put that in Discord as well. So that whole block here, these two blocks, is what you'll end up needing to support what we're doing. So on that first section, we've got the BOM, we've got the analytics, but you'll also notice we need Firebase Auth. Because we're going to be using the Authentication, and Firestore because we're going to be using the Firestore cloud database. So that's what your Gradle file should look like once you have all the dependencies in. This dependency here, Firebase Ui, this is what we're going to use for our authentication screen as well. This one we do have to specify the version as it turns out, so we're going to specify 640. And this is needed if you're going to do a sign-in with Google. You need that dependency as well. For other authentication providers such as Facebook and Twitter, there's additional dependencies that you will need to look at the documentation for how to set those up. But just to do like a username and password and a Google sign-in, that's all the dependencies that you need.
So does the BOM only hold the version numbers for the apps themselves, like the auth and the Firestore, not the actual independent parts like the UI auth?
So it only holds for the parts that are under com.google.firebase.
Oh, that's just the base of it, okay.
Yeah, so all of these three are com.google.firebase, so it'll specify the versions for those three. These, you see, they're not in that namespace. They're not in com.google.firebase. They're in other namespaces.
Where would we find the one for Facebook? I think a lot of us have Facebook.
So if you were trying to get Facebook, let me go ahead and say, you can see it under here, there's a link to it for learn more. And I think that can get you somewhere there, but I'm going to go ahead and hit next on this and hit continue to console. So I'm going to get back here. So I'm going to follow the link to get to docs.
You just ended the stream.
Huh?
You just killed the stream. Or at least it's dead on mine.
Oh, I don't know what happened there, but I will restart it. So I'm going to go to the docs, which is, I just clicked the link up top. And so in the docs, if I go to, I think it's build authentication. And let's go to Android. Yeah, so this page here about the Firebase UI is kind of where you would start reading through it, and it'll give you some steps here. So it talks about, here's what you need for Facebook, here's what you need for Twitter. There's some additional settings that you have to get, so like the application ID, login protocol scheme, or Twitter key and secret. Those are numbers you actually have to get from the Facebook pages, the Facebook developer pages, or the Twitter developer pages respectively. So there's a whole process you have to go through to get those numbers. And so those are things you have to set up. I'll also put a link here to, say, the Facebook. There's the documentation specifically on implementing Facebook login. And where's the page about Twitter? So there's also the page about Twitter login. So you can read up more on those if that's something you want to do. Cool.
But did you say it was best to avoid Facebook because of the...
Yeah, I would stick away from Facebook just because of time constraints. It's not hard. It's just that you have to have a few things. Like, for instance, Facebook, you need a privacy policy, and there's a few different legal documents you actually have to provide Facebook to use any of their APIs, including just logins, as well as there's actually a sign-off process, and the problem is that sign-off process to get approval has been slow, starting mid-2020.
Is it the only one that has to do all that extra stuff?
That's the only one that I've seen. That's the only one that I've seen that had that complicated of a sign-up process. Google, we've already done it. We walked through the whole process for Google. The GitHub is really, really easy. And Twitter's, I also remember I did that for another app, was actually super, super easy to get approval for Twitter. That was done in a day. Yeah, so Facebook's the only one that I've had that problem with.
What about Yahoo? How's Yahoo's? Is Yahoo just like Google?
I haven't honestly tried I haven't tried Yahoo setup, but knowing the age of Yahoo, I'm going to assume that it's probably on the easier side. Just knowing that they're probably not up to date with all the latest things. Part of why Facebook's sign-up process is so complicated is because of all the litigation that's occurred and all the court cases that have involved them. And so several of those court cases have required them to beef up that process. Got it?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of it's just legal stuff in terms of getting Facebook set up. And that's the only reason that Facebook is hard, is because of all the legal rigmarole that you have to go through just to get set up.
Okay, so in practice, for doing our app here, it's going to be Google and email.
Google and email for sure is the two I think is a good baseline to just have those two.
Then with the time that's left, try to get something like Facebook online, perhaps.
Yeah, you can try it, but I would focus your effort on other things. Because learning Firestore is a little bit more important than learning additional authentication stuff. So once we've got all that set up, remember we need to hit sync now to make sure things get updated. And that's it in terms of getting your dependencies in. So yay. That's going to get you the foundation that you need to actually start writing the Android code. Cool. Part of why I wanted to do that today is just make sure everybody's on the same place, especially because this is the area where I saw the most problems with the documentation. Is because there's a few things in here that I saw that were like, oh, that bears some explanation, or you're gonna run into some issues. So I want to make sure that we walk through that first part together. So let's see. Was there anything else to do? Oh, we did want to do a little bit with the Firestore before I send you off. So if you go back to your Firebase console, which you should have here. Okay. So we went through and set up the authentication session, and so I set up the email and password and the Google thing. We want to go down to Firestore, and we want to set that up as well. There's actually two different databases that Firebase provides now. There's Firestore, or there's the real-time database. Real-time database is a little bit older and designed for more things like IoT, Internet of Things type of applications, or other real-time applications. So it's good. But it's not as general purpose as Firestore is. So we will be using Firestore for our projects rather than the real-time database. And you really only get to use one of those. You either choose the Firestore or the real-time database, and they're two different approaches. But the approach that aligns best for what we are doing is the Firestore approach. So when we try to get started here, I'm going to hit create database here. You'll see that there's two options. You see there's start in production mode, start in test mode. Does everybody see this?
Yep.
So the difference here is how it sets up the initial configuration, the security rules. Whichever way you start, you can change it later. You can start with things in test mode. You can start with things in production mode. I want everybody to start in production mode. Okay, and part of that is that production mode starts you with initially setting things up in a secure setup, versus test mode sets it up initially in a insecure setup. I want you to go through the secure process so you get good practices in understanding how you should do the security. If you go through this way, start in test mode, there's a lot of security problems that you're going to indefinitely for sure miss. Okay, so please make sure you set this up in production mode. Okay, so setting up in production mode is going to say by default, as it mentioned here, all of your data is private, that your clients won't have read or write access to anything. And that means you have to give them permission to do any of the operations that you want them to do. So if they want to be able to do any sort of CRUD operations, you have to specify what data can they read, can your users read, what data can, what things can they create, and what are the rules for creating new records in your database, what are the rules for updating or deleting records. So you'll have to define those, and we will, but you're going to start with everything basically private and locked down. That's what we want. So we're going to start in production mode. And so after so that's asking us about the location. And my location is defaulting to NAM5 or US Central. That should be the same thing that everybody sees. Is anybody seeing anything different than that?
Does that go just by where we're at? Just knows by geolocation?
Yep, by geolocation. So like if we were on the West Coast, it would pick one of the West Coast ones automatically. If we were on the East Coast, it would pick one of the East Coast ones automatically. So that's basically, where are the servers that are serving your application located geographically. So the one that's going to work best for us is this US Central one. All right, so we're going to hit enable. Okay, so once that finishes, you should see something like this. Okay, so we've got our project name up on the top, and you've got a button here that says Start Collection. So just like Mongo, this kind of works with the idea where your root level thing is called a collection. Collection is basically like a table in the SQL world. So as a collection is a collection of documents. You can kind of think of it as a collection as a list of documents. Or a map of documents is another way to kind of think about it. It behaves more, I would say it behaves more as a map than it behaves as a list, but you can kind of think of it as both ways. So first thing you want to do once you've got your brand new database is you'll probably want to create a collection, right? So I want to click on there and I want to say, well, what is the collection that I'm going to create? Okay. Now, one of the things they say here, example, users might be one that you want to add. You actually, depending on what you're building, you may not need there's very likelihood you won't need a users collection because your user sign-ins and their login credentials are actually managed separately. That's in the authentication portion. So you don't actually need to usually, unless you have additional user profile information that you need to track, you probably don't need a user's collection. So with the first collection that I would add would be whatever data you're storing. So like if I'm building a store, products might be the first thing that I'm doing. Or if I'm making the notepad app that we made for the test, it might be notes, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's whatever your principal class is.
Right. Yeah. So what I would do is create that collection now. So I'm going to call mine products, and kind of think about this as if I was doing products. In terms of the Firebase world, you can give your document IDs do have to be unique, just as any other database. But they're strings. They can be anything you want them to be. So if you have a case where you want to define it, you might say, well, my username is PR Smith. If I was doing users, I might put the username in there because, well, the username should be unique. But most of the times what you'll do is you're just going to click the auto ID button here, and that will automatically generate an ID for you. Okay? So then we need to think about what fields that is need to have. So for instance, if I have, if I'm making products, this might be the name, and this is going to be of type string. You can pick from all the different data types here. So I might say this is red boots, and maybe I have a price, which is a number. Let's see, we've got, number, and so maybe this is $3.50 for a pair of red boots, little red boots. Might also say, maybe I want to add in some sort of timestamp, so maybe I say like updated at timestamp. And so
that'll be auto-generated, right? That's how we'd set that up.
Yeah, you can get it to auto-generate on the client side to kind of pick out the current timestamp when you're adding things.
Should we just watch for now, or should I just kind of play along and use things
That's up
like
to you.
The lunch dinner comes with rice and beans or not? Or
yeah, that's fine. If you want to add a document there, that's fine.
Okay, that's what we're doing today is sort of building out our model, and that's our. You said we're going to keep it to about 2 hours, so this is kind of where we're ending.
This is kind of where this is basically where we're going to end for today.
Okay.
But because I still have some things I need you to do today. So that's kind of walking you through. That's how you get started to get data in there. Okay. Any questions on that right now? So again, you can kind of see that your data it's like you've got a collection of documents. So this is a collection, that's a document, and then you've got your fields on that document. And this should look really similar to what we saw with Mongo. Cool?
Yeah, just a general overall question, like Firebase compared to Mongo, it seems like Mongo's like the nuclear complex option for everything. Like if you want to do some major database, that's the one. But for small timers like we are, this would be the one.
Yeah, Mongo does like almost everything. Mongo's really, really flexible and really, really efficient. And so it's generally the Mongo is generally the database at this point I would pick for most projects. The catch with Mongo is you really can't use Mongo directly in an Android app. You have to have some sort of REST API, some sort of backend application between your app and the database. So where Firebase fits in here is if you maybe are short on time, right? Or for instance, or maybe it doesn't make practical sense for you to build a backend yourself. Say maybe you're only building a mobile app, an Android app, and you're not building a website. This can be a good fit in those cases. It does provide, as I said, offline functionality out of the box. You can do that stuff with Mongo. It requires a bit more code. You can also do also real-time stuff. Again, you can do it with Mongo, requires more code. So it does do a lot of things that, in terms of a mobile world, which are helpful. One of the things, at least from my research into Firebase, one of the things that it doesn't do well is full text searches. That's one of the places in terms of searching and filtering data, it is pretty limited. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
So,
thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't work so well in terms of the searching functionality, but it's they're competitive. They're two different options and two different approaches, and so it depends on how much time and resources you have to devote to like building your own backend. Okay, so that's kind of the overview and get you started for today. We got the Android app started to get hooked up. I needed to do two things for the rest of the day. So the first up is that on Perusal, there's a video here that I need you to watch all the way through if you haven't yet. So this Firebase Ultimate Beginner's Guide, I want you to watch that through today. So that's going to guide you through a lot of the basics, some of which we've talked about in terms of getting things set up. A lot of things in terms of using Firebase that we haven't talked about yet. So that's going to walk you through a lot of the fundamentals. That video is about 2.5 hours long. So just so you know, that's part of why I wanted to keep today short. That I want you to watch through today. And because we're going to start talking about some of this stuff. Just to alert you though, this video, I think it's the best explanation of Firebase that I was able to find. But it is based on doing this with JavaScript. So do keep that in mind. But the API for JavaScript and the API for Android are almost identical. So it transfers very well. So tomorrow we'll talk about the more specifics of how it actually works in Android. Is that clear?
On the video today, do we need to make comments, or is it like the other videos where they're optional for comments?
This one I do want you to make comments. So treat it as a regular perusal assignment. Make comments on it. Start discussions, and whatever if you as you have questions about it as we are going through it, ask those on perusal. And tomorrow I'll try to go through and answer all the questions that people have asked on that video. Cool?
Yep.
So, yeah, no, comments are not optional. Those I want you to make some comments and have some discussions there. The other thing for today, I have made an example application, which is basically a version of the Notepad app that you made for the hands-on test, except using Firebase. So let me get you that. Where is that project? Repositories.
So the CRUD operations on Firebase, that's kind of the essence of what we got left.
Yeah, that's the essence of how do you do that in Android. So this project here, I'm going to link it. This is the Notepad project. It's got all the CRUD operations implemented with a Firebase database. So what I want you, in addition to watching the video, I want you to take some time to delve through this and try to play with this app. And that will help you. You can kind of dig through it and figure out how some of the CRUD stuff works. Cool?
Yes. And with the model in Firebase, should we try to build that out for our app or just hold off on that?
You can get started on that. I would say hold off on that, though, probably till tomorrow. Hold off on building your full schema until tomorrow. I would say instead watch the video and look at the code example first. Okay.
Okay.
That's what I would ask. And because we'll talk, there's some videos I want you to watch tomorrow, and which I've already uploaded those. And some of those are like, this one says maps, arrays, collations, subcollections number 4 and number 5, how to structure data. both of those two things will talk about how you might want to structure your data. So it's probably better that you wait to fully flesh that out before you watch those videos tomorrow. Cool.
All right.
So
All
that's
right.
it.
Awesome. See you all tomorrow then. Thanks.
Yep.
Have a good day.
Watch videos, ask questions, look at the code example. We'll talk through the code example tomorrow.